Give everybody a few moments.
We do a couple more minutes. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Okay.
Further ado, I've got Barrett Ersek here on selling through storytelling. I'm going to mute everybody just so that we don't hear lots of background music or noise. If you have a question, feel free to put it in the chat box at the bottom of the menu there on the right, and we'll answer the questions as we go along. So without further ado, here is Barrett.
Okay, great. And Nicole, do they see me or they just hear me?
They just hear you.
Okay.
And here's yours. I'm not used to a Mac, so you have
the slideshow play for this guy. Yep. And they see my screen?
And yep, they see your screen. You're all good.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for attending. A pretty good attendance, and I apologize for those of you who had this scheduled for yesterday. I ended up having to be on the road yesterday and didn't communicate that to my team early enough. So we've got a video here. We're not doing that?
Yeah.
I don't know how to make that work. Okay. We've got lots of YouTube videos. Okay. So.
And then Caitlin's supposed to be running this, and she's out today, so we're all flying here. So just bear with us.
So there's a goofy picture of me. Hit this here.
Yeah.
There's a goofy picture of me in our office next to our soda refrigerator, which is also probably recognizable to some of you as a Holganix refrigerator. But what I want to talk about today is selling through storytelling, and what I really want to focus on, whether you're selling, obviously I like to think about selling Holganix, but you can use this when you're selling anything, whether you're selling, we have distributors on the phone, and we also have lawn care end users on the phone, and whether you're selling to a lawn care company, a golf course superintendent, or you're selling to a homeowner or a corporate facility as a lawn care provider, at the end of the day, I think in our industry, whether you're selling Holganix or anything else, I think we haven't muted that.
Yeah, I keep trying here. For some reason, muting on my end is not working. If you guys could mute on your end, that would be helpful.
No, they can't mute on there, and then they can't hear. Oh, they can mute their voice.
Yeah, they can mute their voice.
Well, what I can do is I can just turn this volume off. Okay?
Yeah.
And then we won't hear anything. But we don't need to hear anything.
But they will.
Right. Okay. So at the end of the day, guys, we got you muted now. Whether we're selling to a lawn care provider or we're selling to an end user, a homeowner, I think in our industry we often get bogged down with all the technical attributes of our products, and certainly that's true when you're talking about Holganix, but it's true when you're talking about any product that you're selling in this industry, because at the end of the day, it's a scientific, agronomically based industry, and we need to certainly understand all the technical attributes of the products we're selling. And often we need to communicate those attributes in order for people to buy our products. But what I have found is that most of the time people do not buy based on technical attributes. They buy based on an emotion that they get about a product or a service, but they rationalize or justify their purchase with technical attributes. So you can't just tell a story to make a sale. You still have to have the technical attributes, because that's like a gotta have. I mean, it's a must-have piece of the puzzle. But if you rely on technical attributes without getting to the emotional side, then I don't think that you're going to. Often, what I've found is that you don't make the sale, even though you make the great logical argument from a technical attribute perspective. Now, Nicole, when they have questions, where will it show up?
This chat box will start blinking.
So. Can somebody just send me a question just so I can make sure this is working right? Just say test and write me your name in the bottom of the box. If somebody could do that for me. And then I gotta be able to see this though, because.
Yep. Okay. Then you won't see the.
I won't see the question.
Yep. Go back up for a second. Just put it back up for me. If you do this. Now we'll start to see that chat there. Okay, now the chat box will.
The chat box will show up?
It'll blink right here,
Mm-hmm.
and then you'll be able to see.
Okay, so if anybody read the book by Malcolm Gladwell, Outliers, it's a pretty interesting book. And the concept of the book is that there are outliers in any industry, or as he refers to as experts in their field. And you think about, he uses hockey as an example in the book, and he talks about how there are certain months, and I forget exactly which months they are, but there's like 2 months of the entire year where all, like 72% of all professional hockey players are born in the same 2 months. And that's really bizarre, right? Because why would that be? But at the end of the day, the reason is because the way the cutoffs work and the way the recruitings work, all the way down to Little League level, foster an advantage for the kids that are born within 2 months of the entire season, because those kids are always a little bit older and a little bit more advanced than the rest of the kids. And then those kids end up getting more attention, they get more focus, they get more training, and they're the ones that become the professionals. Now, they have to still have natural aptitude to play hockey. They still have to have a love for hockey. They still have to have the skills, but the fact that they're born those 2 months gives them a significantly better advantage to play hockey at a professional level. And he goes through a bunch of other examples. And the sum of all of this is that you need to have 10,000 hours at a specific. You have to have natural attribute. You need to have a love for it, and you need to have 10,000 hours in something in order to be an expert at it, in order to be an outlier and an expert. And the reason I have this slide up is because I don't know everybody that's on the phone right now, but what I do know is that many people that I've dealt with in this industry, both on the selling side, those of you that are distributor reps, and on the service side, those of you who are in lawn care companies, that most of us are outliers. We've spent 10,000 hours in this green industry, and so that tells you two things. One is that you should look at yourself as a stud and somebody who can become who can produce at a professional level. But two, it tells you that you've got a lot of hours in this industry, and you should have a lot of stories. And when I say stories, I don't mean a story that you're going to make up. I mean a story that can relate to your customer based on something that really happened to you. And so when I say stories, I don't mean artificial fiction stories. I mean telling facts about something in a story type of a manner. And so you guys are all outliers. You all have 10,000 hours. And I don't know that you all do, but many of the people that I talk to have 10,000 hours. And those of you who don't have 10,000 hours, I bet you have 5,000 hours or what have you, and you're on your way to becoming an outlier. But at the end of the day, you've got enough hours to be able to tell stories about this product. And at the end of the day, you should pat yourselves all on the back. You're all champions. You're all experts in this field. And certainly, if you're a lawn care contractor, as you talk to your homeowner, unless your homeowner happens to be a golf course superintendent or something like that, you certainly have more hours in agronomy and turf than they do. So I haven't gotten the message from anybody. Okay, there you go. Typing to all. Can you
chat with me now?
So I did that.
Tim Yingling wrote that.
Tim, so Tim, I got your thing. Okay, so thanks, Tim.
So
I just wanted to make sure that worked. So let's keep that up.
But then you're not going to be able to see your screen.
That's okay. We'll just go like this. I'm sorry, guys, that this is so a little choppy here. My daughter Caitlin usually runs these, and she's not here. So here's the other piece of sales. It's all about resiliency. You're not going to make every sale when you go out and try to sell your products or services. You're not going to get yeses. I started off in this industry doing telemarketing for True Green. And I guess fortunately or unfortunately for me, my first job ever was age 12 years old doing telemarketing for True Green Lawn Care Company. And what I learned real quickly there is, by the way, that industry, for those of you who've done telemarketing, it's a tremendous amount of burnout in that industry. Nobody lasts more than 6 months doing that. It's just a tough job. I actually learned to love it. As a kid growing up, I learned to love telemarketing. And, one of the things I did is I turned it into a game, and I think it really prepared me to be a salesperson in my life. And what I figured out, everybody got upset about making the phone calls because you knew you were going to get yelled at. I mean, we made 25 phone calls an hour, and we got of the 25 phone calls that we asked people if we could give them a free price estimate over the telephone. Cold. They didn't know who we were. We'd get 4 people say, "Yeah, give me an estimate." But we got 21 people that would either hang up on us or yell at us, or politely say no. And so everybody was always afraid to make that next phone call because they didn't want to get yelled at. And what I did is I figured out what I did is I turned it into a 1-to-5 ratio, which I wanted to get 5 appointments, not 4. So I used to think in my mind, I need to get 5 no's before I'm going to get to a yes. So every time I would get a no, I would look at myself. I had a little window next to my desk where I could see my reflection in the window. And I would look at myself in that window and I would smile and I would give myself a thumbs up because I would say, hey man, I'm one more closer to a yes. I just need to get 3 more no's out of the way and then I'm going to get to my yes. And the reason I'm telling you that story is, one is I'm trying to illustrate a point of, look, we're going to get rejection and rejection's okay. It's part of the job. I'm also trying to illustrate that point by telling you a story of something that really happened to me. But the other piece of the puzzle is I want you to look at it, the way I looked at it when I was a kid. I turned it around and I said, look, no's are not a bad thing. They're a good thing. They're a necessary part to getting to a yes. And that created resiliency in me. And it made me want to dial the phone and want to go on to the next call. And so, if we're in sales, and I think everybody on this phone at some level is in sales, if we're in sales, we need to be able to deal with those no's, and we need to create resiliency. And if we can look at those no's and embrace them, then we're going to get that much more excited to go make the next sales call. And at the end of the day, it's a numbers game. Just like my telemarketing days, I had to make 25 phone calls to get 5 appointments. If we don't go and make that next sales call, whether we're selling to a homeowner or we're selling to another lawn care user or a golf course superintendent, if we don't go and make that next call, we're not going to get that sale. And if we make the call sheepishly, if we make it as if we're going to get turned down and that that's a bad thing, then it's going to come across in the way we communicate. But if we can embrace a no, then we get that much more excited about making the next call, and it will actually yield to more yeses. So here's an example of resiliency. If you look at that guy down there with the pink shirt with his hands behind his back, that's me. And that's me after with my last company. We had most of you know, I had a relatively large regional lawn spray company that competed with TruGreen. And we had a fire where our building burned down and we lost, by the way, we had $500,000 worth of synthetic fertilizer in that building when it burned down, and it was uninsured. And so our building burned down to the ground in the middle of the day, and we lost all of our inventory. We lost all of that was also our call center. That was where all of our files were. I mean, that was everything. We lost our business that day in many ways. I mean, we still had a business, and we finished the year off, and we recovered from that. But at that moment, I mean, it appeared as though maybe we might not have a business. And my dad came up to me. He took this picture because he saw my dad's house is 4 miles down the street from my office. And he saw the black smoke and the fire trucks and the helicopters, by the way, that were over top of the building, and the news cameras that were over top of the building taking photos because we were a chemical warehouse at the end of the day, and we had EPA there diking the parking lot and retaining the water as hazardous waste. And my dad saw this, from his house. He could see all the chaos, and he thought it might be me. And he came over to the building, and he put his hand around me. He put his arm around me, and he was crying. And he said, "Son, I'm so sorry that this had to happen to you today." And I looked at my dad, and I said, "Oh, Dad, that's okay." I said, "Look, first of all, we were all in the building. Nicole and I both were in the building when this happened, and so were 20 other employees." I said, "Dad, that's okay. We, everybody got out of the building and nobody got hurt. And so that's the first thing that's good." And I said, "The second thing is, this is a good day. I trust that everything life brings me is a gift, even when it seems like it's a pile of shit. And I know this does appeal to, and excuse my language for those of you, but I'm quoting what I said that day. I think I was allowed to cuss that day. And I said to my dad, I trust that everything life brings me is a gift, even if it seems like it's a pile of shit. And this does appear to be a pile of shit. But, some way, somehow, someday, this will appear to us as a gift, and I don't know how, and I don't know why, but that's what I'm going to choose to believe about this event. And at the end of the day, we can't control what happens to us. We can only control what happens to. We can't control what happens to us. We can only control how we respond to what happens to us. But if we respond with an attitude of gratitude, if we can look at even dark days, whether it's rejection from a sale or your building burning down, if we can somehow look at that as a gift, then it builds possibilities in our heart, and it builds potential and opportunities. By the way, the opposite is true. If we look at rejection in sales, or if we look at problems in our life, whatever they are, whether it's a building burning down or a bad quarter in your business or what have you, if you look at those things as problems, then what you find on the other side of that is problems. And you put into your heart frustration, anxiety, and stress, and that will create more problems. And so if we can just choose to look at those events, and again, we're talking about selling here, and I'm getting a little bigger on life, but it's all the same stuff. If we can choose to look at rejection in sales, or we can choose to look at fires of buildings and just choose that they're gifts and have faith in life, faith that somehow, some way it's a gift, it gives us resiliency. It gives us the ability to move on to the next project with optimism and opportunity and potential. Yeah. So this actually, I learned all of this, by the way, from a monk named Brother David Steindl-Rast, who talked to me about this.
Where's that going?
And Brother David, this is a picture of him right here. So I just want to give him credit for that, because he's the one that taught me about this attitude of gratitude.
Nope.
At the end of the day, what we're really here to talk about is emotional selling. And emotional selling builds relationships. And I'm not talking about building relationships, from a perspective of that's ingenuine. But what I am talking about is building real, genuine relationships with your customers. And if we can do that, if we can sell from an emotional perspective, we build those relationships better. And at the end of the day, if we're looking to buy something, it's a lot easier for us to buy something from somebody we have a relationship with than somebody who's just going to give us a cold call and can sell us something for 25 cents less than somebody else. So, I really think that telling stories and the act of storytelling is really key to building those long-term relationships. And making a point through storytelling is really a lot more powerful than making a point through technical data. And I don't want to discount technical data here. I just want to give you this kind of disclaimer. I'm going to talk about storytelling. I'm going to talk about the emotional aspects of selling through storytelling. But I'm not discounting the fact that we need to have technical data. We need to have technical data to prove that our products and services are good and effective and can solve the problem that the customer wants to solve. But, you don't think that our competition has the exact same technical data? Let's take selling lawns. Let's pretend we're out there selling a lawn, and we're going to go out and talk to that customer, that homeowner, and we're going to tell them, hey, buy our lawn service because, we're going to make your grass green and weed free. And in fact, let me give you the technical data on my particular blend of nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus, and my particular type of broadleaf weed control, and why the data says that this will work, and I will get your lawn green and weed free. The customer has to trust the fact that we can make their lawn green and weed free. They may or may not want to look at the technical data on how we're going to do that, but let's assume that they wanted that technical data. They're going to call ChemLawn or whoever your biggest competition is, and they're going to provide the same technical data. So at the end of the day, the technical data is not likely to make the sale for you unless your technical data is so darn good that nobody else has it. Or in some situations, you have a very highly analytical customer that looks a little bit more like Spock on Star Trek than he does like a human being. But most people make a decision through emotion, and you create emotion through storytelling. You have to use the technical data for them to justify their decision, but the storytelling and the emotional connection and the emotional feeling that they get of how you made them feel is what gets them to say yes. And so here's just a quick a statistic from Chip Heath, who wrote a great book on selling. After you make a sales pitch to somebody, 64% of attendees remember their stories. Only 5% remembered the statistics. And we can argue about whether these are exactly the right numbers or not, but I don't think you can argue the point. And I think if you can think back on a sales presentation that you were in, where somebody was selling to you, if they sold to you in stories, I bet you had a better retention of what they told you in the story than if you had somebody who was just showing you a bunch of charts and a bunch of statistics. So I think this is really important, because I think in our industry, I think we rely too much on the technical side of selling, and we don't get into the stories enough. And so at the end of the day, you got to think about what's your story, and you may need to have several stories for several types of customers. And again, when I say story, I mean genuine. Who are you and what are you about? For those of you who have heard me sell, if you hear me sell for the first time and you've never met me, I'll usually start off by telling you especially if I'm trying to sell to a lawn care operator, which I think we have somebody here from Alabama on the telephone. I was in Alabama yesterday selling Holganix to lawn care operators in Alabama. We had 4 really great appointments that Alan put us on, and I think we got 3 sales out of that. And the other one's not a sale. Somebody's going to get back to us. They didn't say no. But at the end of the day, I started every one of those conversations off by telling that first I asked them about who they were, and try to get them to tell me their story. Because if you can get them to tell you their story, then you can relate back to them with a story that feels good to them, that feels like you can relate to what they're talking about. And you can't make it up. I mean, if the people told me, they were a math major and an actuarial for an insurance company and just got into lawn care because they inherited the business from their dad, I would have a hard time relating to that guy. But if the guy told me that, which is exactly what happened, a guy told me he dropped out of college and started a lawn care company, and next thing you know, he had a family, and it's been all he's ever done. It's all he's ever known. I could talk to that guy and tell him my story. And my story was, and those of you who've heard me sell know this. Those of you who haven't, maybe this is news to you, but I started working for True Green Lawn Care Company when I was 12 years old doing telemarketing. And in fact, my voice hadn't changed when I first started, and I found it was easier to get people to say yes to as a female than it was as a male. So for 2 years of my life as a telemarketer for True Green, I was, "Hi, this is Kimberly Ann from True Green Lawn Care Company. And the next couple of days, we're going to be in your neighborhood. Just like to stop by and give you a free price estimate and lawn analysis while we're there. Would that be okay with y'all? You don't have to be home at the time." And people would say yes to Kimberly Ann a heck of a lot more than they would say yes to me. And so and it was fun, and it got people to laugh in the office. But that's part of my story. That's how I got into this industry, and it's a fun, goofy little story, and it makes fun of who I am. But and then it got me into, when I was in a junior in high school, I started my first lawn care company, and I built that company up, and ultimately sold it to Scott's, and ultimately that led me to the industry I'm in today and what we do today. And so I get to tell that story so people can understand that when I'm talking to them, if they're a lawn care operator, they know exactly what I'm talking about. I know exactly what they're talking about. I'm not just making this up. I lived it. I can tell people, and this happened yesterday. Guy was talking about how he uses a Parma Green, which is a machine that puts down fertilizer as a gasoline engine, and you ride on it. For those of you who might not know that, and a customer's talking about his Parma Green, how he didn't like it, and I have nothing against Parma Green. I think they're fine machines for certain applications. But at the end of the day, that's what this conversation was about. And so I got to look that customer and tell him. I can remember one time taking a Parma Green down a driveway, and it was in neutral while I was coasting down the driveway, and then I put it into what I thought was fifth gear so that I could start fertilizing the lawn. I actually put it in reverse, and my face went into the handlebars, and I knocked my 2 front tooth out on a Parma Green. Well, I could tell the guy I know all about Parma Greens and I've used them before, or I could tell the guy that story. And, that guy knew that I could really relate to him about riding a Parma Green and any kind of a pain in the neck he was dealing with a Parma Green. And it made us instantly have a connection. And, I didn't make that up. It's not like I pretended that my teeth fell off. I mean, that's really happened to me. But I could tell him that story. So when you're talking to customers, you need to think about what are your stories that you can relate to them, And if you're a lawn care company selling to a homeowner, what are the stories that you have maybe about other homeowners who have used your services and saw their lawns go from really struggling to really great? And I'll give an example of a common scenario. You go up and you talk to a customer, you meet them at the front door, you measure the lawn, and they say, you know what, I've had lawn care companies before, and I've had ChemLawn, and I've had this person and that person, and the lawn never really gets to the point where I want it to get to. It's always struggling, and we always have problems. And so instead of telling the customer, well, we're going to get it there for you, Mrs. Smith, because we put down so many pounds of nitrogen, so many pounds of potassium, so many pounds of phosphorus, and we calibrate our machines every morning, and we put down the right amount of material and good quality material, and so we'll do a great job for you. And that's fine, but that's a lot of technical data, and she may need to hear that in order to buy. But it'd be more powerful for you to look at that woman and say, Mrs. Smith, I'll tell you what, I understand exactly what you're saying. I have a customer, in 2 neighborhoods up that told me the exact same thing 2 years ago. And you know what, Mrs. Smith, we did soil testing on her, and we found out that, she had poor soil, and we addressed the problems that she had with her soil instead of just coming out and giving her a regular program and hopefully it works for everybody. But we took a consultative approach to her lawn, and we fixed the things we needed to fix. And let me tell you something. The woman was so happy with her lawn that, when her daughter got married this spring, they had the wedding in their backyard because she thought that was a nicer place to have the wedding than any other place she could rent in a hall. And, imagining that is a true story. And by the way, that was a true story that happened to me when I owned my lawn care company. That tells Mrs. Smith that you really care. You can really relate to her pain that the lawn never gets there. And you can paint a picture of what it's going to look like in 2 years after you've done your consultative approach to helping her get her lawn. And there's no way that woman's going to say no to you, even if you're $10 more an application, because she gets the fact that you understand her and you've seen this before and you've solved this problem before with somebody in her area. And so you got to think about what's your story. I'm going to skip past that slide because it goes to a video that we don't have here. So as a lawn care professional, and again, I know there's distributors here that are selling to lawn care companies, and there's lawn care companies that are selling to homeowners. I'm going to relate most of my stories to lawn care companies selling to homeowners because I think it appeals to the entire base here. Because even if you're a distributor rep that's selling to a lawn care company, I think that the more we can relate to the lawn care company operator, the more successful we're going to be at selling to them and helping them with the solutions that we have. So, where do you tell your story? You tell your story every place you contact the customer, every place you connect with the customer, you tell your story. And that's, telemarketing, direct mail pieces, websites, press releases, newsletters, social media. And, when these bullet points are really, when you're thinking about a lawn care operator, this is where they connect with their customers. But it's true with distributors too. When when you're out there reaching out to your customers, it's when people come up to your counter. If you have walk-in traffic, it's when if you're a technician and you're out there spraying a lawn, it's when you're out there, doing the lawn and a customer comes up and talk to you. There's always a chance to tell your story, relate to that customer, and strengthen that sale. And at the end of the day, that's how you create lifetime clients. When people can relate to you and feel like they have an emotional connection with you, they will stay with you for a very long time, even if maybe the service isn't perfect. At the end of the day, let's face it, as a lawn care operator, no matter what we do, the lawns are never perfect for 12 months out of the year. There's going to be a time where they're going to have, clover next to their mailbox that you missed, or the lawn just doesn't look good because it's been hot and dry. You name it, there's always a problem. But if you can create a lifetime client, if you can create an emotional relationship with that client, they're much more likely to stay with you through those hard times and understand. Now, granted, you got to be responsive. You got to fix the problems. You got to do all those things. But we're assuming you would have done that anyway. But when you get that emotional relationship, it takes it that much further. So what you have to do in order to create lifetime value clients beyond creating that emotional connection is you have to get obsessed about looking for ways to create value for your customers. And when I say obsessed here, look at this silly car, this giant red 75 Eldorado. I actually drove this car to work today. It was a pretty day here in Philly, and I could put the top down. This is one of my cars, and I bought this car because I wanted. I used to have a motorcycle, and I wanted my. And I have, obviously, you can see that's my family. That's my wife and my 4 kids, and I had a motorcycle, and nobody would ever ride on a motorcycle with me because my wife was afraid to get run over by a truck, and she didn't want any of the kids to get run over by a truck either. And I guess I had enough life insurance that she didn't mind if I got run over by a truck. But at the end of the day, I couldn't share my motorcycle with my family. And so I thought, I'm going to sell my motorcycle, and I'm going to get something that gives me that open air feel that I can put my whole family in. So I bought this car because this was the newest car I could actually buy that sat my entire family so we could go out and get an ice cream cone. Because this, if you remember the old cars, this is a 1975 Eldorado. It has a bench seat in the front and a bench seat in the back, so you can fit 3 and 3. So that's just a funny little story about that car. The real purpose of this slide is to explain to you about being obsessed. And you guys have seen this. And we probably have some ladies on the phone too. So when I say you guys, you got to give me a pass on that. I'm from Philadelphia, so that means ladies and gentlemen in Philly talk. But you have to get obsessed about creating value for your customers. And an example of being obsessed is when you get your reticular activating system, which is a part of your subconscious brain that controls, it filters what you think about. The reticular activating system is the device in your brain that points out the things that you see in your day-to-day when you're just going about your day. And an example of this is if you go to buy a brand new car. You think it's the coolest car you ever had. You painstakingly picked out the color, the pinstripe, the wheel option, and you've never seen that exact combination before. And as soon as you pull up to a traffic light, the first day you're driving the car, you notice that there's 3 other cars that look very similar to yours right on the road. You never saw them before. This happens to me with my red Eldorado convertible. When I bought this car, I thought it was the silliest, most obnoxious car there ever was, and I was the only guy in the world that would possibly drive one. And that made me feel cool because I wanted a unique car. As soon as I got it, I started seeing Eldorado convertibles everywhere. I had never seen them before. The difference was my reticular activating part of my brain that controls what I focus on is focused on Eldorado convertibles, so much so that one cannot pass me at 80 miles an hour without me turning my head and noticing it. In fact, I sometimes feel the vibrational energy of Eldorado convertibles. That's how tuned into them I am because I'm emotionally connected to this car. And the reason I'm using this as an example is because I want you to think about creating value for your customers in the same way. I want you to be obsessed about creating value for your customers the way I'm obsessed about Eldorado convertibles. I want you to get your reticular activating part of your brain to constantly be thinking about how can I create more value for my customers? How can I make my products or services better, cheaper, safer, more convenient? How can I solve problems for my customers in a way that nobody's ever done before? And at the end of the day, that creates value for your customers. And if you have an emotional connection with your customers and you can be obsessed about creating value for your customers and make sure they know that you're obsessed about creating value for them and demonstrate it by bringing them value, then you'll have a lifetime customer. Excuse me here, guys. I'm just trying to work this thing. So, the highlights of this is, outliers. Most people I meet in this industry have been in this industry for a very long time, and they are very successful at what they do, and know that, and give yourself credit for that, and know that you're a stud. Resiliency resiliency and the concept of gratitude, and I don't mean gratitude for things that make us happy, but I mean gratitude for everything life brings us. Have faith in life. Have faith that everything life brings you is a gift, even when it seems like it's a pile of shit. That is key to success in sales because you will get no's, you will get rejection, and if you're afraid of rejection, you will have that many. You will not go for the next sale. You will not take a chance with a cold call. But if you can embrace it, you'll make more cold calls. You'll make more sales. Emotional selling builds relationships. So again, how do you create emotional connection with your customers? You tell them stories. You document the stories. And, that's a really important piece of this as well. If you're trying to build a sales organization, let's say some of you here maybe work with several other people that are in your company that are also selling. Document the stories. Talk about stories to each other of where your products and services have created success. You talk about that homeowner that had their wedding at their backyard because their lawn looked so good. talk about, if you're a lawn care, if you're a distributor rep selling to lawn care companies, talk about to your other sales reps the times where you really helped a lawn care customer grow his business, or you really helped a lawn care customer create a better program that created better turf, and as a result, he grew his business. Or talk about, you know, the situation where you saw this problem lawn and you solved it through these processes. Share the stories with each other, document them, write them down, and create an energy in your company and a ritual where you share stories so that you have a more of a bank of stories to share with each other. And then creating lifetime customers means becoming obsessed about creating value. Get your reticular activating system, your subconscious mind, programmed to constantly focus on how can I create more value for my customers. And I'll tell you, you'll find ways when you're just going about your day, whether it's, you know, how the lady at McDonald's delivers your Big Mac to you, or the other day I went to Enterprise and I noticed, you know, how friendly the gal was that rented me the car, and the automated process that she gave me to get me out of the line quickly and get me onto the road more quickly. It made me start to think about, you know, our sales process and what are we doing to make it effortless and pleasant, and what are we doing to make it complicated and sticky? Because the enterprise system and this woman who was particularly executing the enterprise system had made it so flawless and so easy that it put a smile on my face. And it made me start thinking about my business and in what ways are we doing that well, and in what ways aren't we doing that well as I'm driving down the road and daydreaming. But the reason that happened to me is because I had my reticular activating system obsessed about how can I create value for my customers, and so I was trying to relate that experience to the experiences that my customers are having. So that's the end of my overall presentation about, you know, selling through storytelling. We need to have technical data. Let's use the technical data. But at the end of the day, people will not buy on technical data. They buy through relationships. They buy through an emotional connection. You create that emotional connection by telling stories and by relating to the customers. You then use the technical data as a backup for them to make to kind of justify the decision that they made. But the technical data will rarely make the sale for you. So that's the end of that presentation. I'm here open for questions. Tim, I'm just realizing I thought you were giving me my test when I asked for a test on the chat. You said, "Can you chat with me now?" So I certainly can chat with you through this webinar. But I can also, I think, if you talk to Tim, I could talk to you as well now because we're open for questions.
Hold on, everybody.
Maybe.
Okay, now we should be open for questions.
So Tim, are you still on the phone? Or still on the webinar? Okay, it was a test. Okay, thanks, Tim. Does anybody else have any questions that they'd like to ask me about this presentation or anything else about Holganix or anything that's happening out in the field that you'd just like to talk about? How about this? Bruce, I see you're on the phone. Bruce Buckert, I haven't talked to you in a while. Do you have any, can you share with the group, Bruce, how you're doing with business? And I know last time I talked to you was more than a year ago, but you had some pretty good stories about how your business was growing. How's it going now?
It's going great. Even on the negative side, we haven't had any rain for a while, and we're having it right now.
Okay.
So that's a big gift. But people, neighbors are all, they're all, what do I want to say? There's more customers that are interested in organic than not. And I've actually, for the first year, I haven't really said a whole lot. Just got Holganix on my truck. People are starting to ask me, "Hey, I hear you're organic," so I'm all excited about it. I'm just starting tree and shrub, taking advantage of last winter being dry. Lots of shrubs still out there, not looking very good. So right now I'm working on a marketing strategy to go out and touch bases with customers, try to save their bushes.
Great.
Trees. But it's fun. Of course, starting business, you know how that is. Quit your job that you've been around for 25 years and go into this. But I have not got scared yet, and I'm very excited about your product. The golf side of it's just unbelievable because they're watered. Not that lawns aren't. Lawns are a little more tougher to sell, but the golf course end of it that I was in, holy smoke. Guys are thriving on it. You know, 2 years ago, I was going around talking about that over equipment because nobody had any money. And I'm getting phone calls back, hey, you were right, you know. Why didn't you sell me this a long time ago? Well, anyway, yeah, it's you just drive down the road, you can tell if somebody's using Holganix. It's just unbelievable. My yard, I've used Holganix for 2 years now, and I'm mowing at 5 inches, and my yard's still green. People are, it's unbelievable. So I have that picture on my Facebook or whatever. But anyway, still have a great attitude toward it. And
hey, Bruce, that was a great example, by the way, of a story. You know, if you're out there talking to your customers and they're complaining about their drought, or you're talking to a prospect and they're complaining about the drought, somebody you haven't had on the program yet, somebody that's not a customer of yours, and they're saying, you know, hey, my lawn's brown, I'm just not interested in talking about lawn care right now. You know, a great way, you could say, hey, here's all the reasons why we can keep your lawn, greener in a drought, because of the technical things we do, the roots and the organic matter and yada, yada, yada. And, I'm not saying you shouldn't say those things, but if you really want to relate to that customer, you go back and say, hey, let me tell you something. I know it's a tough time of year and none of the lawns look perfect, but, I've at my lawn, I'm cutting it at 5 inches. So that's one thing that's important to understand because that helps us in a drought condition. But the other piece of the puzzle is, we're using organics and doing the right things to the turf. And we've been doing it now for more than a year. And I'll tell you what, my lawn's still got some green to it. And that is a better way to relate the benefit than it is to sit there and go through all the technical pieces of why it's green. So it's a great example, Bruce. Thanks for sharing that. And
yep. It's like your shop burning,
Yep.
And a drought here. It's a gift. There's a drought. That gives me more opportunity to show what I got to offer.
Dan, are you on the phone?
So,
Dan at Good Nature?
Yeah, I'm here.
Dan, you guys are using the Holganix on tree and shrub, is that right?
I believe we are. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
You're not out in the field, Dan? I don't know your position.
Not on the field, right? Yeah.
Okay. I thought maybe you were one of the guys that was running one of the branches. I was just going to have you share some of your tree and shrub, stories with Bruce because you guys are not direct competitors, and maybe you could share. But that's fine if you're more of the field and sales guy. Then I understand.
Right.
And any other questions you might have, Dan?
Nothing really. I guess I was curious. What's the percentage or do you know that people are using the Holganix on the lawn versus the trees and shrubs?
Yeah, so I would say that...
Is it kind of a 50-50 mix or what?
No, it's not 50-50. It's probably more, and this is not an exact number, this is a gut number, but order of magnitude, it's 80% of our customers are using it on lawn, 20% are using it on trees.
Okay.
And I think that's I think that's unfortunate because, look, I love the lawn revenue because it's more acres and it's more revenue, so I'm not complaining. But I'll tell you, it does a phenomenal job on the trees and shrubs. It does a great job on the turf as well. But the fact that we haven't been better at converting more people to look at using on trees and shrubs is probably a fault of ours for not focusing on it enough. It's really, when you get on the trees and shrubs, it really does shine. It really does do a great job. We've got places like the Grand Ole Opry and the Biltmore, which are mega estates, mega properties where they really focus on trees and flowers, using our product as a great tool there. And so we need to get better at communicating that to our lawn care companies that they can use it on trees and shrubs too, and that it does a great job. So thanks for bringing that up, Dan, because it gives us something to focus on in an initiative.
Right. Okay.
So thanks, guys. Any other questions anybody might have for us before we sign off?
Thanks, Barrett. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks for the time, guys. Hopefully that was helpful to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.